It's been interesting to see all this creativity and innovative solutions here from Yle and many others. And I think that we really need to work more with innovation within the field of journalism to stand a chance in the future. And today I'm going to show you how we have solved a problem with a somewhat unorthodox approach. Because we never seem to satisfy our users' need for even more local, personalized content. And we can't be everywhere all the time. And one way of handling the constant need for more content is automation. And I will show you how we use automation, or AI, to both distribute and produce content. I've been a journalist all my life. I still identify myself as a journalist, but today I work with products and technology. And I'm responsible for digital strategy at Mittmedia. Mittmedia is a local news publisher with 28 strong local brands all over Sweden. We were recently acquired by Bonnier News, Sweden's biggest news media company. Mittmedia's mission is to produce quality journalism to almost 300,000 subscribers. The topic of my presentation today is the robot reporter. And that sounds pretty scary, doesn't it? It's actually not. So this isn't a scenario where it's human versus robots, even though that would be a great movie, I think. This is about how humans and robots together can make sure that the journalism that has made a difference in the world for the last century can continue to thrive. Because journalists, they make the difference. They investigate, they ask the hard questions, they use words to paint the reader a picture. But making a journalistic product that readers are willing to pay for isn't just about the award-winning articles, the revelations of corruptions, the gripping interview with the survivor of a tragedy. Customers also want to read about the weather, the game in the local football league, and what houses have been sold in my neighborhood. In the past 10 years in Sweden, the number of journalists has decreased by 25%. There isn't time to write articles about everything that we used to, so news organizations have been forced to stop producing content readers actually want. And in order to let humans do what only humans can, we need automation, or we can call it robots, it's okay. So the robots are not taking someone's job. They're not replacing journalists, they're just picking up some of the slack. A question I often get about this is what this development will mean for journalists. And I say that this isn't a threat, it is a possibility. And if a journalist fear that he or she can be replaced by a robot, that particular person probably can be. But a robot can't replace an ambitious journalist, a talented journalist. They can only make that person's job easier, because automation makes investigative journalism possible. Using automation can be good for your business. It's certainly good for our digital subscription business. So let's have a look at our most efficient automation, the homeowner's bot. We built a robot that produces articles about every house sale in our towns. And this is how it looks like in one of our news sites. It's automatically written and published whenever there is new data on houses that have been sold. It looks like any other story published in our local news products. But the big difference here is that no human being have been involved in producing or publishing this article. And I know that some of you in here are probably surprised that information like the names of sellers and buyers and the price of the house are open to the public, but Sweden is a very transparent society, and we have for decades published lists like this in our newspapers with the same information that we built the homeowner's bot on. But it's a very different skill to publish lists in the printed newspaper once a month compared to publish automatic articles every day online. So a couple of years ago, we founded a company, United Robots, with 2 other partners to develop a platform for automated content. So in this case, with the homeowner's bot, we paired Mittmedia's content developers with United Robots' software developers and gave them a mission: let the data tell a story. And this is how the bot that they developed work. So we get the data from the to the homeowner's bot from Sweden's Land Registration Authority. And they include data points like the name of the seller, the name of the buyer, the address, the price, and some more data points. When the data is cleaned, our algorithm analyzes the data to find the best angle. Is the house unusually expensive? Is it a big house? And so on. It works kind of like the normal journalistic process when a human works on a story. You collect the information, you decide on the best angle, and you write your story. Except in this case, every step is automated. And as you can see here, we are very transparent about the origin of the article. The byline on all automated content in Mittmedia reads Mittmedia's text robot. How do you think our robot journalism is performing? Well, Mittmedia's text robot is our most efficient employee, if you would compare it to a human being. It produced 64,000 articles and got 3 million logged in page views in 1 year. And that's impressive by our standards. More philosophical question then, why is this happening in Sweden or Scandinavia, and why Mittmedia? Why does Scandinavia have the most automated news stories in the world? I would say that Sweden is somewhat of a pioneer in news robots and automation of media, and it's no wonder. According to studies made in 2017, 80% of Swedes express positive views about robots and artificial intelligence. We welcome this. By contrast, 72% of Americans are worried in the future robots and computers will substitute humans. So I really believe that we, and by we here I mean Swedes in general and Swedish news media in particular, are fast to adapt to new user behavior and see the possibilities. So how did it all begin? Mittmedia's first news automation was actually a very quick hack. We were curious how automation could be used in a local news product. And what's the most efficient way of finding out? Just do it. So Swedes are really interested in the weather because it's very challenging. And one of our in-house developers built a bot that writes weather forecasts every morning for our 64 municipalities. It took him about a week to write that bot. Very simple. So, but it made us understand what you could do with automation. And also, it made our journalists see the possibilities and made it less threatening, because this wasn't something that they would want to do. Today, we have several kinds of news automation that are integrated in the editorial workflow. The sports bot is our most comprehensive one. It's kind of a good feeling getting a push notification from your local newspaper with a story just minutes after a football game has ended. We publish stories from every game played in our geographical area in several sports. So all divisions. Ice hockey, obviously. Football, basketball, floorball, bandy, handball. And it's okay if you haven't heard of the last three, but they are big in Sweden. Badminton, table tennis, motorcycle speedway, volleyball, bowling. And numbers add up quick here. We have, in our regions, 480 football teams in 59 leagues playing every week. And that is just football. And now we can cover them all. The sports news bot writes and publishes around 3,000 sports articles a month. The other type of news automation that we use is the homeowner's bot that I have covered. Then we have traffic news like accidents and road closures. We use public data APIs that are actually available in most European countries. Public transportation use, like cancelled trains or other events that can affect our users. Weather alerts from Swedish National Weather Services, because everybody cares about the weather. And the latest addition to the team, new businesses and businesses closed due to bankruptcy. So whenever there's a new business starting, like a restaurant or a consulting agency in one of our towns, we have a story on our websites. And the same goes for when they go bankrupt. So this bot, the last bots here work more like alerts to editors. The editor can decide if the article needs further work or if it can be published as a first version of the article. But I think that most of these services will eventually be automatically published in our news brands, like the sports bot and the homeowners bot. And our automation has made work more efficient for our editors. And our users get the news faster and in most cases with more accurate information. It's easy to be a bit carried away by technology and make products that are fun to develop instead of products that people really care about. And that is why we are looking at data when we decide what automation to develop. In our data analysis of what type of content that makes our loyal users convert into digital subscribers, real estate, like house sales, have always stood out. Here we see a chart of the efficiency of our content as a bubble chart. The bigger the bubble, the more efficient it is to convert the loyal users into paying users. And the y-axis shows the number of articles, and the x-axis shows the amount of logged in users. So in the top here, we can see that we find crime stories. We do a lot of those. And in the bottom, we find real estate, or we used to. We didn't do that many news articles about real estate, but we could see that it was great content for our loyal users. The question we needed to ask ourselves was, how could we start making more house sales articles? Usually, we just pass this type of insights along to the editors, and the process looks like this. You have data, you analyze the data, you share the data with editors, like with dashboards and reports, and then the editors makes decisions on what content to produce. And the reporter produces the content, and the content is published. But in the case with the homeowners bot, for example, we start with the same foundation, but instead of sharing the insights, we create a bot. And the content is published over and over again. And that way we have solved the user's need, but also a business need, of course. There are, of course, limits on what you can do with automated content. The automated news is only as good as its data. You can only go so far with available data. As an example, we can write a good story with hard facts from a local football game, who won, which players scored. But with a quote from someone who actually was there, we can write a great story. We can make our somewhat clinical automated text spark by combining man and machine. We have developed a service where we send text messages to coaches after the game. We ask them what they thought about the game, and the robot asks questions based on the data from the game, instead of broad questions. So it's kind of a reporter robot. And getting quotes from someone who actually was part of the games have increased text quality. This is an article published in one of our regional news brands. It's been translated into English, but I think it's still clear how much a quote means for the article. But of course, this also adds risks for a responsible publisher. From a controlled flow of data consisting of game statistics, we will now get quotes from humans, and we all know that humans can be unpredictable, especially after having lost an important game. So the comments absolutely need to be screened before they are published. But I really believe that this is the future, man and machine together to make great content. Our journalists are, most of them at least, happy with the help that they get from algorithms. But how about the readers? I've shown you that the users read the automated content, but what do they think about it? Well, most of them don't notice. Even though the byline clearly states Mittmedia's text robot, and we explain what that means, in a study that we made, 2/3 said that they haven't even noticed that the article had been written by a robot. So readers, they are interacting with this content because it's relevant content for them. One of our editors, he told me he got a phone call from a reader, and she was very upset. Not because it was an automated text, but because she thought that the reporter had written a headline that was too harsh. And the headline read like, "Blowout loss for Pålsboda football club." That it was an automated text wasn't something that she cared about. It was the content. She wanted to give feedback to the writer as if it was a human. Another example is a 16-year-old football player from my hometown. She plays in the lower divisions, and her games has never been something that the newspaper has cared about. Until now. All of a sudden, her name was in the headline since she had scored 3 times in the same game. She shared that piece in all social media you can think of. Journalists feel, quite rightly, that they have an important function in society. They, or perhaps I should say we, provide the public with truthworthy and up-to-date and relevant information. But what happens when news robot can perform that very same service? What happens when new technology challenges one of the most fundamental values of journalism, that it's a journalist who makes the selection and decides what audience can see, hear, and read? And the technological development isn't slowing down. The tech giants like Google and Facebook all want journalistic content, but they keep claiming that they are not a journalistic platform. Google is transforming its Google News using AI to make a personalized news feed for every user based on location, interest, and preferred sources. But they keep insisting it's not journalism. And I agree it's not, because it's not a journalist that's in charge of the algorithm, and Google's core isn't journalism. It makes me even more convinced that we must make sure to keep the initiative when it comes to content, because our core task is journalism. I think that this means that some journalists will keep doing investigative journalism, asking the tough questions to local politicians and writing those stories that just gives you the goosebumps. At the same time, other journalists will focus on being the journalistic logic in autonomous systems. They will develop algorithms that make those personalized selections. They will teach the robots how to write an article. This is our sports bot, or at least the sports bot's father. His name is Henning Johannesson. He is the sports editor at Mittmedia. This highly skilled journalist has trained our sports bot. He has taught it how to analyze the result of a football game and find the best angle. He has learned the robot how to write an article. Basically, the sports bot is Henning, just about 1,000 times more efficient. And this is why we are so proud to call it robot journalism. We have worked with automated content for some time now, and I will share with you a few insights or the pros and cons of robot journalism. On the pro side, better journalism. Some of you perhaps think it's a bold statement to say that news automation will lead to better journalism. But from my perspective, it's totally logical. We should use humans for tasks humans are good at. Journalists make the difference. A bot, a news automation, is a brilliant tool to write 10,000s of stories based on data, like the examples I have showed you here earlier. With the help of robots, we can free up reporters to do stuff that can't or shouldn't be automated. Better user experience. We can create content that wasn't possible before, like covering all football games or house sales, topics that readers cares about. A story can adapt to your personal interests, something that only a robot-written article can do, and that is a very good user experience. Increased quality. There is a reason why we say the phrase, "we are only human," because humans fail from time to time. Studies have shown that automated stories have far fewer errors than human-written stories. Of course, errors can occur in robot-written stories, but then we can treat it just like a software bug. We fix it, and a robot will never make the same mistake twice. On the con side, bad data, bad robot. If the data is wrong, it can get bizarre consequences. Like when our sports data supplier got the results wrong. A game between two football teams ended 1-0, but because the person responsible for reporting the result put it in the wrong field, it was reported in to us as 10-1. So the headline read something like, "Humiliating loss for Gnarp," when in reality, the game was pretty even. And to tackle problems like this, you need to take measures to enhance data quality. In this case, our data supplier developed an alert notifier if the result was improbable. Potentially dull and spiritless. The old way of publishing might not work. Automated content must be published in the right context. The strength of automated content is quantity. The cost of producing 10 articles are roughly the same as producing 10,000 articles. But 10,000 robot articles on a news site is not a very good user experience. If you want to start with automated content, you must make the user experience a priority. And the last one, pivot availability. Missing data sources could lead to topic underreported. So we have established that good quality data is essential for making good automated content. This poses a risk from a journalistic perspective. It's a risk that we choose to produce content from topics where we can get good data, like sports, traffic accidents, weather, and so on, while topics that are much harder to quantify might suffer and be less covered. But to conclude this is why I believe that having human and machine working together is always the best solution. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you, money-wise, is it cheaper to have a robot reporting? Is it cheaper for you as the owner of the company to buy software, to create to provide all the tools for the robot to be able to report, or to hire a journalist who would do that and to pay his salary? And there is a mic here.
Yeah. I would say that scale. Everything is about scale. If you develop a robot for a small task, it won't be profitable. But if you develop it to deliver over and over again throughout the years, it will be profitable. And also, we are sharing these robots that we have developed through this company, Unite Robots, and are actually we have actually customers all over Sweden. Almost all local Swedish news media companies today are customers of this. So that way we can share the burden, share the investment with more, because this isn't something that just works in our territory. It's beyond borders.
And how vulnerable is the system? If somebody wants to humiliate you, I mean, websites you can attack, that is as far as my knowledge goes. But how vulnerable the system is from bugs, from all those attracting all those viruses that can make the reporting totally false.
So, yeah, what we deliver here is articles. So the technology, the bot, is separate from the news media. So of course, if you falsify the data sources, the robot will spit out totally false articles. So I think that the data here is the most vulnerable part.
Who controls the data?
The government, when it comes to like road traffic accidents and public APIs. We use the same APIs as your sat-nav, your GPS systems use, because that data is...
So there is no journalist in flesh and blood checking if the feeding of the computer is, if while feeding the computer, the robot, there hasn't been a major error?
No, because then it wouldn't be a robot-written article.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's risky.
It is risky, but I think that as a product person, it's a manageable risk. And I think that it's a problem that journalists are so risk-adverse. I think that we need to be transparent, but at the same time take risks in order to learn.
Yeah, but in our job, you only die once. I mean, when your credibility goes down the drain, that's well.
I think it's about, you can do it in a very transparent way. If you tell the readers how you came up with the story, they can also use common sense to understand how the risks.
And finally, I saw that you signed the stories.
Yes.
With
Mittmedia takes over,
so that's a notification for people who are reading, so that they know.
As I said, transparency is really important, and I think that we often are not transparent enough on the process, the journalistic process, on how article is being produced. Who are the journalists? Because a AI system like this. They don't come with an agenda, a bias, but journalists, we do. Even though we try to be objective, but we are humans. So there are risks all over.
Okay, thank you very much.